1. So I'm a security guard at a couple comic and anime conventions in my area. It's fun work. Make a little extra cash, get a free hotel room, and entry to the convention weekend plus a prep day before the con. Thankfully, we seldom have to get physical with anyone. A simple, "Can you please stop running?" or "Please stop swinging your prop weapon?" is as far as we usually have to go on a good year. The main drawback is my team always gets shafted during the breakdown of the convention on Sunday night, and are usually there doing con cleanup till close to midnight. This particular night I'm busy helping tear down signage, and help the vendors pack up all the merchandise they didn't sell. It gets a little more exhausting than I expected, so I take off my top layer shirt, revealing my undershirt, which was a Dragon Ball Z compression shirt, in the shape of cyan armor. I also have a pretty big Dragon Ball Z tattoo going up the left side of my body. Yeah, it's kind of my thing. This portion of the story takes place in January 2018. A vendor flags me down for assistance and I begin helping her load a bunch of her stuff into her truck. One of the other helpers who doesn't work for me, NB, sees me and practically lights up. He instantly goes into how much he loves my tattoo and shirt, and how much he loves Dragon Ball Z, and that he's hosting a huge tournament for the new Dragon Ball FighterZ game that, at the time, had just came out. He asks me what I'm doing tomorrow, to which I tell him I'm leaving after the con, since I live more than 2 hours away. Despite this, he says, "Close enough," and invites me anyway, telling me where the address is and all of the details. I just assume he wants a lot of people to come to this event, like anyone would, and think nothing of it. Now a little bit about NB from what I could gather. He's in his 30s and liked most of the standard neckbeard tropes. Anime, My Little Pony, etc. Overweight, but not the worst I've seen. He was indeed stinky the day I met him, but we were all doing physical activity, so I assumed it was from the work. Surprisingly no fedora though. Not in any of his pics either. However, what he lacked in fedora he made up for in neckbeard. It was like he had never seen a razor or anything about grooming in his entire 30-something years of life. It went everywhere, like he had just stuck his finger in a light socket, and looked very dirty. We finish teardown, and as I'm leaving he asks me for my Facebook info. I give it to him and leave. February. NB wastes no time on the creep factor. After he friends me on Facebook, he then follows me on Instagram immediately, which isn't that big of a red flag since Instagram recommends your Facebook friends. Then the next day he sends me not 1 but 3 PSN requests. I remember not knowing who this person was, so I ignored them, to which he then sent another 2. Since PSN and Facebook are linked, I rationalized that maybe he saw a video I posted. But I'm more of a recreational gamer and seldom post vids or screenshots, so you'd have to dig a bit on my wall to find them. Then the next week he follows me on Twitter. This was now starting to weird me out, since I seldom ever tweet, and mostly have one to follow a couple athletes I follow, and info on certain events. I also don't link to it on my Facebook or Instagram, meaning you had to go searching a while to find it. Now I'm a bit creeped out. However, the crown jewel came next. I get an email from my Yahoo account, which was the first email address that I only use for junk mail nowadays. I still look over them since an occasional Amazon receipt gets sent there. And what do I see in the inbox? A friend request from Neckbeard for Xbox Live. Now I'm freaked out. Why? Because I got a PS4 the day it came out. I unhooked my 360 and haven't used it again since. That was in 2013, that's 5 years of inactivity. I don't even use the same username anymore due to how cheesy and immature it was. The amount of personal digging and stalking you have to do to find my fucking Xbox Live account is insane. March. At this point, this dude has freaked me out a lot. And he now has begun to love every status I post on Facebook. Every single one. It started when I liked a gay rights post a friend of mine made shortly after meeting him. I myself am straight, but I assume he took a simple show of support for the LGBTQ community to mean I was now going to be into him somehow. Then he started to leave comments trying to sound like we were best friends or have known each other for years. Posts like, "That's not the DJ I know," to a post about me being too tired to go to work or responding with, "You didn't tell me," when I made a post about being back in his town for a couple hours to visit relatives. Why the fuck would I tell you about that? Do you think I'm going to invite this random man I met at a con to my cousin's house? Beginning of April. My birthday is in April. NB spends most of the day trying to FaceTime me so he can sing me the birthday song. A grown man spent his entire day, and I do mean entire day, 9 AM to 10 PM and about 8 different message attempts. A grown man who is not a professional singer, trying to sing to another grown man the birthday song, unrequested. The post comments and Facebook loves continue. I've been ignoring all of them. End of April. This was the culmination of what I had hoped would make him get the point that I was not interested. Avengers came out, and everyone is talking about it. A lot of people have seen pre-releases or are seeing it. I don't remember why, but I didn't see it opening night, but opted to see it on Sunday evening. I'm relaxing at home on Friday and get a message from NB on Facebook. Now, it should be stated that social media stalking and comments are, so far, all he's been doing. We haven't had any convos since in person 4 months ago. He starts off by asking if he's interrupting me before bringing up some half-ass, "How's life been" BS. I try to be cordial and polite enough on Facebook, but I'm already fed up with him by now. We get on the subject of Infinity War and he asks me who I'm seeing it with. Odd, since you don't know any of my friends. I tell him I don't know, but if need be I'll see it by myself, since I don't want to go to work on Monday, having not seen it. He then brings up how. "No, dude, it's too epic of a movie, you have to see it with someone." I see where this is going and try to laugh it off with an, "Okay, hopefully." To which he then proceeds to ask me where I live so he can drive close to 3 hours to see this movie with me. I tell him no thanks, but he keeps insisting on how I need a support person for the film. I finally snap and tell him how I'm not interested in him or seeing a movie with him, and how fucking creepy it is for someone I barely know and have only talked to for maybe 20 minutes now wants to drive across the fucking state to see a movie out of the blue. Despite this, he still insists it will be fun, and begins to tell me about all the people he knows in my area, and who he knows and could make a day out of it with. I tell him no, again, before finally telling him to fuck off. Summer. NB kind of backs off. He is liking my statuses less and seldom comments. I'm thinking it's all done now. That is until yesterday, September 28th. A week ago I got a new phone and forgot how to get into my Google account to get my contacts back. So I tell all my friends to text me with their pictures so I can get their numbers. One of my buddies tells me he lost my number, so without much thought, I comment my number in the replies. You can see where this is going. The week goes by without a hitch. I make a couple other status updates as usual here and there, enough so that my one asking for numbers is no longer the first you see. Then, yesterday morning, what wakes me up out of a dead sleep? You guessed it. NB texting me. 3 in a fucking row asking how I'm doing, what I'm up to. I lose it. After cussing him out, I block him on every platform possible. I know some of you are wondering why I didn't do that from the get-go. To be honest, I felt kinda bad for him at first. There were a couple times where I wondered, maybe he did just really need a friend. Yesterday was the point where I finally followed up that question with, "That's not my fucking problem." 2. This happened a year ago during my senior year, and I will never forget it. People involved, me, 5'10", 20-year-old, trains every day and manages sugar, also hypoglycemic and really into metal. Thrash for the win. Poundbeard. 238 pounds. Always wore a jacket, and was really into body positivity. The ultimate nice girl / bitch. Kay, a good friend of mine that I hung out with. She supported me through this entire ordeal. A chill friend who took no shit. Kay's boyfriend. Various metal and geeky friends. Before I went to this school, I went to an inner-city school for all of high school until my senior year. To protect my identity, I'll explain the town lightly. It's a very small truck stop of a town with a good amount of people. There is only one high school, and that's about it. My first day at my senior year was pretty chill. I got the occasional offhand look any out-of-towner did. I quickly made friends with Kay, who was a native and lived there all her life. She helped me fit in and gave me tours of the school the first 2 classes. She explained how lunch hour worked. Students were given free rein to study or eat, which seemed alien to me. I chose to eat that day with her and her boyfriend. That was when I met Poundbeard. She sauntered up with a greasy jacket and equally fry-dipped hair. The worst part was she was overweight, which I don't have a problem with, as I had some friends who were overweight, but dear reader, we know some things must be kept set in stone. I kid you not, she came running up in the shortest of shorts. Her muffin top hid anything that may have scarred me for life. Kay immediately looked distraught and nearly slammed her lunch down on my side of the table to make room for the approaching Poundbeard. When she sat, the table shook. She began to pester Kay about her new teachers. Kay didn't look very happy to see her there. It wasn't long before Poundbeard knew I existed. "Oh, a new friend!" She looks to Kay with a very nasty glance. "I guess Kay is looking for a replacement, huh?" I jumped on that quickly. I had a large track record with ROTC and a number of extra activities similar to it. I hated when people acted like this to others, but instead I believe I angered the beast more. No, I am new and she's showing me around. Poundbeard seemed to scoff at that. I told my friend Kay that I was going to the library. She and her boyfriend followed to escape Poundbeard. Later they told me that Poundbeard had an aggressive history torturing her classmates, dumping milk on Kay's head, to attacking a boy who didn't go out with her. At first I thought these were just over-exaggerations, but it wasn't. You'll see why later. A week later, I took to eating lunch in the library. It was quiet, peaceful, and I didn't have to deal with Poundbeard heavily breathing while I ate. This time I had brought myself snacks, crackers to Pop-Tarts. Since I have hypoglycemia, eating these snacks was important. One day a code yellow was announced and lunch lasted 3 full hours. Kay was with me, and so was A. Unfortunately, Poundbeard found her way in before the code was announced. For the first hour I spent hanging with a fellow metalhead, who invited me to play Clue. As I played, I ate a Pop-Tart, which it already had been 3 hours, and I feared my sugar would drop if they kept us longer than I was expecting. When Poundbeard joined the game, I got a little peeved, because she tried snatching some of my Pop-Tart. This was without asking, and I quickly moved it away. This seemed to piss her off a bit because she was heavily breathing as she spoke. "I thought we were friends. You aren't supposed to be eating anyways." Then she left and told the librarian, Mrs. G, who I made aware of my hypoglycemia before I ate at all. She allowed me as long as I cleaned my mess up, and didn't sell it. I watched Mrs. G smile in the usual way and tell her I was hypoglycemic, and that I was allowed. This angered Poundbeard even more, especially now she couldn't get to me that way. I explained to my friend why I had to eat, which she said I shouldn't rub my illness in other people's faces, which got her ejected from the game completely. The antics rose from there. Poundbeard would make offhand comments about me being hypoglycemic and at an okay weight, saying I had thin privilege to eat whenever I wanted, or how I was faking it all to be a fat ass. I never approached her with these comments ever. As then, I was very patient and ignored them. She began to talk shit about me, which led to some students getting onto me for eating. Eventually, I had to eat my quick snacks in the bathroom to prevent getting shit from them. Poundbeard's reign of terror eventually ended one lunch day. She admitted she had a crush on some boy, some poor innocent lad who was being relentlessly stalked on Facebook. She even saved his photos to make it even more creepier. Kay, obviously wanting to get rid of her, told her to go ask the boy out. Here is where I should add the school resource officer hangs out with us during lunch. She went over to the boy, who was several tables away with his friends. We could see them exchange words, and the boy, very politely, turned Poundbeard down. What came next I have never seen before in my life. She grabbed the boy's tray and threw it in his face, screaming how he was a fat-phobic privileged asshole, then got even angrier when the female friends of the guy defended his honor. The officer at our table rushed over and handcuffed her, dragging her out as she reed like some pig. We didn't see Poundbeard for several days later. She was back to making terrible comments about my hypoglycemia. Eventually I had enough one day and told her to fuck off. K&A did the same too, and Poundbeard never talked to us again. I found her Tumblr blog from that year. I won't share it, as it could be active. However, she mentions in full detail about me using my illness to rub it in her face, and use her thin privilege to eat in class. I showed it to some of the people involved a year later, and we laughed our asses off. 3. My family is filled with a menagerie of people, but my aunt's, let's call her Aunt M, immediate household is a treasure trove for any drama lover. The real star behind this story is Aunt M's daughter, a genuine legbeard that really sets the bar. Her name will be Bertha for the story. Things were getting really tense where my mom, brother, and I were living, so Mom started looking for places out of state to live. The only problem being was that money was tight, and we had no idea where to go. In comes Aunt M, saying that we should come live with her family, as to combine resources. Now I had less than 8 credit hours until I got my associates, and told my mom that I refused to leave until I could finish. Since I was raking in more money than my mom at the time, and she wouldn't be able to move on her own, she tells this to Aunt M. Apparently, this aunt really wanted us to move out there, and came back in the next couple days saying that she spoke with a colleague out there, claiming that they would work with me on my associates, and that my grants and scholarships would be able to transfer. This would be the first shit pile I would step in. Believing her and asking for some info on the school, I agreed with Mom to start moving, and 2 weeks after my finals we were packed and on the road. The move itself was hell, yet nothing compared to the state of Aunt M's house, and my cousin Bertha. The house honestly looked like it flopped out from an episode of Hoarders. We all know the standard appearance of a neckbeard. Their body types can differ, but they all appear as though they have given up on any semblance of taking care of themselves. Bertha, being female, only needed the beard itself to finish the role. For one, there was no chance for her to give up, as she had done nothing to give up on. At 19 years old, basic hygiene was a foreign concept to her. But whatever she lacked in with her soap-handling skills, she made up with an odor, cringe factor, entitlement, and many more undesirable characteristics. Normally, I would never speak about one's outward appearance, since I still haven't gotten over my insecurities. But damn it to hell, you could at least try. Even a 2 can be polished up to look like a decent 5. But no, Bertha had some delusion that she was a 10, deserved it all. Her brother Steve had woken up bright and early the next morning to help my mother, brother, and I unload the truck and throw things in the storage unit. As we plucked the last box from the U-Haul, Aunt M rolls up with her husband and Bertha. I wasn't expecting much from Aunt M and her other half. They both are physically unable to do much more than lift food to their faces and pass judgment. But Bertha, who was built like an overfed linebacker, was a different story. She pried herself out of her parents' car wearing 6-inch stiletto heels, velvet pants in summer, some lacy see-through blouse, WTF, and kicked on makeup that was just too dark for her skin tone and would make any raccoon jealous. Why? After they saw that there wasn't much else to do, they take their time walking around the storage unit and start making comments on how everything wasn't put in properly. And if we would want to ensure nothing gets crushed, we should reorganize the entire space. Hell no. Unless they were going to take everything out and rearrange it, they could take that advice and buttfuck themselves with it. Fast forward another 2 weeks, and I'm trying to get ready to head over to the college Aunt Em said she spoke with. After a few dead-end calls, I realized the only way I'm going to speak to anybody in the offices was to physically show up. I had woken up at 6 in the morning to get the registration process over with as soon as possible, and was stopped by Aunt Em and Mom, who both asked me to bring Bertha along as well. While my gut was saying no, I, against better judgment, agreed and waited another 2 hours before leaving so the She-Hulk could get ready. On the way to the bus stop, Bertha starts on about how much she knows the bus system, and how she also knew the city like the back of her hand. I'll admit it kinda soothed me thinking at least one of us knew the way, but I couldn't stop feeling like I couldn't trust her. I knew this creature. She never left home without at least another person to hold her hand. So at best I felt she would maybe recognize a landmark or two, which wound up giving her more credit than she deserved. When the bus finally rolled up, I quickly pay and walk over to an empty seat, and realize that Bertha was just standing in front of the bus meter. She just stared at it, as if it was an alien life form and unsure how to approach it. And then she turned to me with hopeful eyes. Turned out she didn't have any bus fare and had expected me to pay. The ugly feeling grew in the pit of my stomach as I get up to shove more money into the meter. She quickly followed me to the seat and started looking around the bus like she was on some amusement park ride. I sat there peeved that she apparently hadn't brought any funds for her trip, and now I, who was already low on cash, was going to end up paying for her throughout the day. Sitting on an inner-city bus, surrounded by strangers in the dead of summer, isn't the best way to find out that the vehicle's AC is broken. Much less that your seat partner didn't shower in what smelled like a week. I won't go into detail on the cloud of odor that tried to snuff me out. The description itself would make anyone sick. After sitting next to this fragrant relative for about an hour, she mentions that we need to take a stop coming up and to get ready. We stepped off, and I start looking around for anything that vaguely resembled a school. Bertha, who stood behind me, was staring at the spot the bus vacated with a sleepy expression. "Bertha?" I asked. "Where's the school?"
Her
patented squeak echoed around the bus stop.
I don't know.
I inhaled and tried to stay calm. This idiot got us lost when we had hardly taken 3 full steps within the city. I came to the realization that she had no idea where we were, and that she had lied about knowing anything. "Then why did you say to get off here?" I hissed. She started to make a high-pitched whine.
I don't know.
I then noticed a map on the back of the bus stop canopy, and looking closer saw that it had routes outlined around the city. One showed the college. Okay, thank you, Jesus. Another bus stop was painted across the street from the administration building, showing where we could catch a ride home. I memorized the street names. I was too broke for a phone with a camera, let alone a smartphone. And I explained to Bertha where we needed to go and started down the street. She tried to complain about having to walk, but slowly started to waddle behind me. I could hear her labored breath puffing like an ancient train trying to climb the side of a mountain. From where we got off the bus to the college was around 30 blocks, possibly a little more, but since we were cutting through a few concrete lots, I think we shaved it down a few. About halfway there, I noticed that my cousin wasn't panting behind me anymore, and turned around to see that she had pulled a Houdini and was nowhere to be found. Even though Bertha was an adult, and shouldn't need to have her hand held, I knew her parents would crap themselves if anything were to happen to their darling sweet baby girl. I began backtracking, trying to see if maybe she stopped in the 7-Eleven store we passed a few corners ago. Finally, I spotted her hefty form lumbering down the street, 10 blocks from where I had turned around. As Bertha crested a hill, her melon head bobbling to some imaginary song, I realized that I honestly didn't give a crap, and it wasn't worth the time it would take to go after her. I did an about-face and continued down the road I had been on. Turns out the school I had been looking for was a 10-minute walk from where I noticed Bertha was missing. Wandering around the campus and asking a couple times for directions, I finally found the administration building. It was there that I found Aunt Em had lied through her key-making teeth about speaking with anyone at the college. None of my grants or scholarships would transfer, and in order to graduate through this school, I would need to take 36 credit hours worth of their classes. I was desperate, and located a kiosk that advertised some cheaper classes that maybe I could take to peck away at my associate's degree with. It was then that my nose hairs began to curl as a familiar scent slithered into my immediate area. Just like in Jurassic Park, where the water starts rippling at the approach of the T-Rex. So do a few water bottles nearby. I noticed a few students look visibly sick from the odor. Bertha waddles up next to me, dripping in sweat, and smelling worse than she did on the bus. I could hardly see straight as this beast of a woman just smiles at me as if she hadn't just gotten us lost and left me in the middle of the city. "Where were you?" I said, glaring at her. I wanted to roll the catalogue up and beat her with it.
I found another street that led to the school. I found it on my own,
she said and puffed up her chest. Is this moron serious? She ran off in a city that neither of us knew, and what? Did she want a trophy for finding the college on her own? A cookie? Great, so go get your shit done so we can leave. I was already pissed and could feel my blood pressure rising. Her face fell and she pouted a bit, her lower lip poking out above one of her chins.
"What's wrong?"
she whines. "You ditching me in the middle of a city neither of us has ever walked in is what's wrong. You lying about knowing the transportation system is what's wrong. You expecting me to pay for you during this little adventure is what's wrong. The fact your mom lied to me and my mother about the transfer process here is what's wrong." I mentioned a couple of other things, but you get the picture. I ended with telling her again to get her registration done so we could leave and turn back to the catalogue I had been reading through. She stomps away, and shortly after I hear the distant bellowing of a dying animal, following the horrified stares of the other people who were scattered around me. I found what they were transfixed on. There in the middle of a courtyard that was on the other side of the windows, I and nearly 50 others were looking out of, was my cousin sobbing hysterically. Not crying, not sulking, sobbing. What cake-up that hadn't drizzled down her face from the sweat earlier was now oozing all over her cheeks as it mixed with tears and snot. I quickly put back the catalogue and walked away. 4 hours later, Bertha found me outside the registration offices. I didn't actually want to hunt this wildebeest down. We had to the bus stop, and that should have been our drop-off point, where I endure a ride back that was more terrible than the first. Bertha was whining about how I treated her, and I had the beginnings of a headache booming underneath my skull. After getting dropped off, I watch as Bertha somehow manages to scuttle-waddle in the direction of the house, with a speed I didn't know she was capable of. Letting her have the lead, I meander down the sidewalk, dreading the verbal assault that would be waiting for me. The first thing I heard when I walked in the house was Bertha crying into her mom's shoulder, telling her how awful her day had been, and how she had been treated so badly by yours truly, how she had gotten lost, and how her feet hurt, and wah, 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 wah. Mom asks me to follow her up to the room we were staying in, and starts grilling me on what happened, as if I had planned the whole ordeal. Apparently Bertha had called while in the registrar's office too, and told her parents how much of a bully I had been, and how I wouldn't help her with the college application process. I regale Mom my side of the misadventure with my Yeti cousin, and tell her to never expect me to do anything with Bertha again. And in case anyone mentions, she's not on the spectrum. She was tested and was in honors all throughout high school. There were several times when it was very obvious that she knew what she was doing. 4. Halloween parties are a staple in my little town. Unfortunately, so are Neckbeards. This is the story of a Halloween party where the scariest thing wasn't the decorations or the costumes. It was the bronies. As a side, if you like My Little Pony, that's completely fine. Do your thing. But don't be these guys. I'm begging you. Release the cringe. Characters: me, Spooky, Bronny 1, Bronny 2. Spooky is Neckbeard bait, plain and simple. She's short, curvy, nerdy, goth, and feisty as a sleep-deprived Wolverine. Another thing is, while we weren't dating by the traditional sense, although we both agreed now that we basically were, we didn't sleep around or flirt with other people because, quite frankly, we didn't want anyone else but each other. Now, before you say it, no, I'm not trying to write a romance novel. I'm clarifying that we didn't flirt around because it's relevant later on. The night of Halloween Eve, our senior year of high school, Spooky and I decided to go to a community Halloween party thrown by the city hall. Yeah, it was probably going to be lame, but the flyer stated free food, prizes, costumes, and candy galore, and Spooky and I, being as Halloween-obsessed as we were, couldn't resist. We felt like the coolest thing since personal pan pizza strutting up the city hall stairs, dressed as the Joker, my favorite villain, and Harley Quinn, which I'm pretty sure Spooky only agreed to so she could wear her leather jester bodysuit, which I wasn't complaining about at all. I also want to clarify this was before Suicide Squad came out, and the Joker Harley Quinn costume idea wasn't oversaturated yet. The party wasn't nearly as lame as Spooky and I thought it would be. There were amazing haunted house decorations and effects, fog, strobes, creepy audio. There were tables lined with delicious-looking food, and candy, and everyone looked like they were having a grand old time. And so were we. But naturally, an adorable goth girl dressed as Harley Quinn in a skin-tight leather suit will draw out a neckbeard like shit draws flies. We first saw these two specimens inching closer to us as we were grazing at the food table. Me stuffing my face with as many mozzarella sticks as I could conceivably fit in my mouth, while Spooky bet I couldn't fit any more. That's when we heard the sleaziest voice I've ever heard. "Whoa! Your tits look fantastic in that suit, babe." "I bet they look even better out of that suit, don't they?" Followed by nasally laughter. These two weren't even in costumes, or at least I don't think they were. Both were massively overweight and unwashed looking. One was wearing a My Little Pony fedora. The other a pink shirt with "Friendship is Magic" bedazzled across it with a black trench coat. My mouth was still stuffed with cheese, so the only thing I could do was sputter indignantly. Spooky, on the other hand, "Fuck yeah, my tits look great. That's why I'm wearing this shit. You two should know all about tits, seeing as yours are bigger than mine." I nearly choked on the cheese from laughing. Unfortunately, the two bronies didn't seem to like that joke very much. "That's quite the mouth on you, slut. Maybe I should fill it with something." "I'm sorry. Are you referring to your dick? Because I really don't have time for excavation at the moment, provided it's still under all them rules." "Bet you're a subbing bad. I could tie you up if you want. Maybe whip you." "Bitch, you can't even tie your own shoes." I was crying at this point. I was laughing so hard. Whatever sleazy, borderline rapist line the two spouted, Spooky was right there with a comeback that was making them increasingly angrier and angrier. I stepped in once I saw one begin walking forward, as if he wanted to touch Spooky, and we all know my feelings on that shit. "Stand down, Jiggles. You've been outclassed. Get over it." "Who asked you, fucker? What are you, her boyfriend? You're not even worth my time. I'm trying to have words with the lady." "You had your words, and they were pretty underwhelming. Piss off." Spooky was flicking them off at this point, a huge smile on her face. The brawny spat at us before shuffling away, glancing back at us, scowling. Spooky and I had ourselves a laugh before continuing with the festivities. Another couple hours passed, and eventually Spooky and I separated briefly, so I could use the men's room. I was zipping up when out of the corner of my eye I saw the looming shape of Brawny 1, and I died a little inside. He was glaring at me, overtly blocking the exit. "What's up, Jiggles? Need something?" "Just need to keep you busy for a minute while my friend works his magic." "What?" "Your little whore is going to see what a real man is like by the end of the night." "Oh my god, You two are seriously too stupid for words. Did you think you wowed her when you said she had great tits? And when you threatened to rape her? Get fucked, you gelatinous twat waffle. You know we go to the same school, right? Your bitch has quite the reputation, you know. She's super easy. Oh yeah, 'cause I'm going to believe someone with the social skills of a public urinal. You're about as clean as one, so I guess that makes sense. Talk shit all you want, but I bet my buddy's cock is balls deep in that little... My foot connected with his balls before he could finish his sentence. And as he was going down, I leapfrogged over him and immediately went looking for Spooky. It didn't take me long. There was a small crowd gathered towards the back of the community center, people mumbling and chattering as Brawny 2 was being led away in handcuffs by one of the security guards. A panicked feeling welled up in my stomach as I shoved my way through the crowd, to see Spooky sitting on the floor, mascara running from tears, a female guard and a couple other people comforting her. When she saw me, she practically jumped on top of me, hugging me tightly. Where were you? I was getting worried. Never mind that, what the fuck happened? Did he touch you? Are you hurt? Spooky explained that not long after I left, Brawny 2 approached her apologizing profusely for his earlier behavior, trying to get Spooky to let her guard down. Spooky told him to fuck off, and turned to leave when Brawny 2 grabbed her and slapped her across the face, before trying to shove his tongue down her throat. A few other people saw this and immediately jumped Brawny 2, tearing him off of her and basically kicking the shit out of him until security arrived. Spooky was sobbing into my chest, and I just held her, anger and guilt fighting for dominance inside of me. Brawny 1 and Brawny 2 were arrested after the actual cops arrived, and Spooky was asked to come make a statement at the station. I called her parents and asked them to meet us after I explained the situation. My heart was breaking for Spooky. She spent the entire time clinging to my arm like I would disappear if she let go. A few hours later, we were at Spooky's house, her parents letting me sleep over given the circumstances, and I spent the whole night holding her. For as strong as Spooky is, there's only so much someone can take, and being physically assaulted was something that took Spooky a while to recover from. But as I write this, Spooky is currently passed out in my armchair and marathoning the Nightmare on Elm Street movies for the 10,000th time, and is for all intents and purposes the same Spooky she's always been and always will be. 5. Greetings, fellow connoisseurs of all things cringe. For the last few months, me and a buddy of mine, I'll call him John for the sake of anonymity, would pick up the Dragon Ball Super trading card game for a change of pace to our usual Warhammer-related shenanigans, and have been going to events at our usual game shop, which is by and large a pretty beard-free environment, and fun has by and large been had. So when John saw a Facebook advert for a pretty big tournament down in London on a weekend we had off, we made our excuses with our respective ladies. I packed up my deck full of green slug men and we hopped on a train. Now I am more of what hardcore anime fans might call a poser. I am a fan, but I am picky with it and I know what I like. Dragon Ball is one of those things, but I don't really go to conventions and my interaction with the world of weeb is somewhat limited. What I was not expecting was for John's first opponent to be a walking stereotype. The man, if such he can be called, was a rake-thin, clearly unwashed, acne-ridden 20-something with a pastel-colored t-shirt, at least 3 sizes too big, with a half-naked lady character with a staff I did not recognize. He was also wearing some kind of wide-brimmed faux leather hat indoors, for some unknown reason. When I wandered up after getting hammered in my first game, a trend which unfortunately would continue, I smelled him before I saw him. Basically a mix of overused Lynx deodorant and 3-day-old B.O. that I thought I'd left behind in a cold high school locker room. Not one to interrupt a game in progress, I patted a clearly frustrated and grossed out John on the shoulder and seated myself to watch their last round over his shoulder. Now John is the most mild-mannered gamer I know, even-tempered, forgiving, and slow to anger. He doesn't really care enough about winning to get annoyed at stuff. And given that we are both trying to play TCGs at events, we weren't going to make any waves. But damn, would this guy test both of our good natures in the space of 20 minutes. How John got through the first 2 rounds without blowing his lid, I will never know. The first thing the guy said as I wandered up was, "Don't give your friend any help. I'll call a judge straight over." Which was a bit of a red flag, but I brushed it off, stating that I was going to keep quiet and just wanted to wait for my friend to finish. Over the course of the game, I watched as this guy attempted to take back moves after realizing he misplayed, get called out by John twice for trying to overdraw, and John countless times having to read the guy's cards, as he could just not be trusted to tell the truth as to how they worked. Now, if it was me, I might have just called the judge over, called out his shenanigans, and have done with it, but John, with the patience of a saint, was painfully playing out the last round while we were getting annoyed with this asshole's feeble excuses to justify his blatant cheating. Now that in itself was incredibly irritating, as you might imagine, but it's not why I'm here today. I am here today to go over the epic temper tantrum when this guy lost. When John played his final battle card and attacked, the guy just sat there and stared at the table for a very awkward 30 seconds, before, I shit you not, actually letting out an incredibly loud "ree." I have genuinely never heard anyone ree in real life before, but there it was. Loud, long, and incredibly shrill, causing most of the hall to look up from their games, and the storm and dramatics that would follow. Screaming, crying, "Come on, you're a grown man!" Accusations of cheating, "No mate, that was you," claiming we weren't real anime fans, gatekeeping, classy. All this while flailing about, knocking his own cards on the floor. We just stood in stunned silence, taking in this epic display from this beard, without a beard, until the judge pulled him from the room, yelling at the top of his lungs about the injustice of it all. The judge pulled us over a game later and apologized. Apparently the guy had been banned from Magic the Gathering as a whole. I didn't know you could ban someone from a whole card game, and had been on thin ice with the hosts of this tournament for a while, and as a result of this incident, they had banned him. The rest of the day was a great laugh with great people. However, the little beard and his foot stamping did not at all dampen our day out. We even managed to get a few beers in with some of the players afterwards. I wish I could tell you we did really well and won a lot of swag, but we didn't. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Neckbeards in the Wild, number 15. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I wasn't 100% sure I should include story number 4, it was story number 4, in this video, but I thought it was important to put it here with Neckbeard stories, not only because it was a Neckbeard story, rather than say the True Scary stories, because it was mostly usual Neckbeard hijinks. Because I think it's important to show that these people can in fact be quite dangerous because of their attitudes of entitlement and self-importance. Because every now and again you'll get someone come along who thinks, oh, well, surely you're just picking on these people for wearing funny hats and t-shirts and things, and no, it's not the way they dress, not the fact that they don't wash, although soapy and expensive. It's the fact that they act the way they do. While that story was an extreme example of it, I think it was an important example to include. Okay, and with that, I think I'm going to head off for now and get these videos made and try and relax for the weekend. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.